Woohoo! Church of Montpelier recognizes and respects these peoples as the traditional and ongoing stewards of the lands and waters on which we gather. In that same spirit, we will respect, protect, and be good stewards of this land for as long as we walk on it. My name is Margot Prendergast, and I use she, her pronouns. As today's worship associate, I thank you for joining us in this time of worship from wherever you are, whether you are on Zoom, on Facebook, or watching the service on your own time. We deeply appreciate your presence and fellowship. For over 150 years, the Unitarian Church of Montpelier has been a sanctuary for those seeking both spiritual sustenance and peace and justice in the world. Whether you are a newcomer, a longtime member, or somewhere in between, you are part of our community, and we are glad you are here. Any and all newcomers to our congregation and worship service are invited to fill out our welcome form shared in the Zoom chat so that we can connect with you outside of our service. If you are joining us in Zoom, the chat function will be on for much of the service. It is a great way to publicly welcome and support one another, to affirm the hard work and effort of our worship team, and to share good vibes and positive thoughts with each other. For technical issues or constructive thoughts, please send a private message to one of our Zoom hosts, indicated with an asterisk by their names, or join us for coffee hour after this service to share them there. Thank you to our virtual greeters who are offering hospitality and tech help throughout the service. Additionally, on Zoom, click on the live transcript button wherever it lives on your screen for increased accessibility. I have a few brief announcements about the life of our congregation. You can join the Climate Action Team today during coffee hour to discuss lifestyle choices people can make to reduce their personal climate impact. We will resume offering in-person attendance of Sunday morning worship next Sunday, March 20th. Read the e-news for more information on how to register in advance and the COVID safety guidelines that are in place. Finally, please read the weekly e-newsletter to learn more about the upcoming events in our church community. And now, let us enter more deeply into our time of worship with our prelude.
Thank you, Eliza. Good morning. I am the Reverend Joan Javier Duval. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm so glad that you made it to our worship service this morning, despite the time change and the big winter storm. Our opening words are by Matthew Johnston. For 5,000 years or more than 15,000 generations, human beings have been invoking spiritual power. My predecessors and yours have gathered together to make sense of their lives and their place in the cosmos. And they have spoken aloud and invited what they conceived as sacred and powerful to be with them. They called upon the spirits of air and earth, fire and water. They called the bear and deer. They asked for the raven to protect them. They pleaded for the heroes of old to slay the monsters of their fears. They sang songs they learned from their grandparents and moved in the appointed ways, or in ways that were new, but felt like the right thing to do. And they imputed power to these spirits and to the memories of those heroes. They called them gods, and they were invoked. Vishnu and Kali, Elohim, Odin, and 100 million others. Every group of people, everywhere, they gathered to make sense of their lives and to make sense of their place in the cosmos. And they called these spirits to be present to them. And so do we. And so do we gather this morning to make sense of ourselves and this universe in which we live as best we are able. And we call ourselves to worship together, and we invoke the power and wonder of life itself, that to which all those spirits of animals and memories of heroes pointed the way. We invoke that power, which is, we know, always around, always with us, but which we sometimes forget about. We forget that we are part of the whole of creation. We forget that we are stardust. We forget that we are capable of miracles, first among them that we can love. We forget these things, so we invoke the power of existence so that we can remember. So we can lift our eyes and open our ears to the true and beautiful. For 5,000 years or more, we have done this in many tongues, in many ways. We have done this. And so we continue that ancient tradition in our way and in our time. And so let us now worship together. Please join in our opening hymn as Maisie leads us in I've Got Peace Like a River.
I've got peace like a river.
Thank you, Maisie. Let us now light the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. I invite you to light your own chalice at home if you have one nearby. We light this flame, an enduring symbol of our collective commitment to lead with truth and compassion. Please join me in saying these words of affirmation, adapted from Universalist minister L. Griswold Williams. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant.
Thank you, Margot. It is so lovely to see all of your faces this morning. It warms my heart on this snowy winter morning. I'll keep it on gallery view so I can see as many of you as possible while I share the Time for All Ages this morning. My name is Liza Earl Centers. I'm your Director of Lifespan Spiritual Exploration, and I use she, her pronouns. And in a wonder basket here this morning, I have some things to show you. Here. Wonder what these all have in common. These are from about a month ago. Most of them homemade, many of them from you all in the congregation. Some Valentines, love notes that you sent me during my 2 months away for deep rest. And I have kept them on the piano in our living room because it's really nice for all of us to remember that we are loved. Do any of you save Valentines or love notes? Yes, I'm not alone. Well, I think it's good to remember all those that love us, and we all have times that we might doubt that. The Time for All Ages this morning is titled "The Earth Loves You in Return," and the title is from one of my favorite books for spiritual inspiration. I've shared it before here, Braiding Sweetgrass. It's a bit like my Bible. I refer to it often. And you might remember I shared a lesson of the authors, Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is a botanist, a writer, a professor, and a member of the Potawatomi Nation. In the fall, I described the honorable harvest, where we build relationship of reciprocity with our plant neighbors. And that when we harvest, we do so with humility, with listening, with mutual care, and with deep gratitude. Another part of the book that really struck me when I read it, Kimmerer describes asking her college students, biology students, to raise their hand if they love the earth, and all their hands shot up. And then she flips the question and she asks her students, how many of you know that the earth loves you? And there was an awkward pause and some hesitation. They looked around. They had never thought of whether the earth loved them back. And I wonder if any of you have pondered if the earth loves you in return. I've been pondering this question myself for 2 years since I read the book. One evening after reading the book, I found myself in deep despair. The layers of challenge, emotional and physical, from the pandemic had piled up, and it all got to be too much. I went to my backyard in the evening and I sat down at the river's edge by myself, and the tears just came. I couldn't fight them off any longer. And while I sat there and wept, I looked around, and the field across from me was filled with fireflies, dazzling, pulsing like they do sometimes. And that light was reflected in the smooth water of the river. It's so beautiful. And layered on top of that was a chorus of frogs pulsing with their song too. And I felt it so strongly. I felt that Mother Earth was there wrapping me in her arms like my mother did when I was a child and would run crying to her. And she just held me and let me know it was okay, that I would be okay. Yes, honey, it's been hard, it felt like she was saying, but I felt so held and so nurtured and so loved by the earth. To be seen and loved by the earth herself, that is big love. Surely we could all use that. And now I feel held by the earth all the time. I went for a walk in Sabin's pasture on a warm, sunny day this past week. And in the middle of the day, we heard two barred owls call to each other. Woo, 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 woo. And we paused. We stopped for 10 minutes to listen. They called back and forth, and then, as they do sometimes, they got into a cacophony where they sounded more like monkeys than like a pair of owls. And we laughed. And then one of the owls soared overhead just behind us. So magical. The beauty and the wonder of that moment, it was such a gift. It pulled us both from the all too harsh realities of our news feed of this past week. A reminder to pause and breathe and laugh. A gift of love from the earth when this human world threatened to consume me. As we carried on, we spotted a yellow and black caterpillar down by the stream in a sunny spot. Perhaps the earth saying, spring is just around the corner, my dear Liza. Don't get discouraged by this coming snowstorm. Other love notes come in the form of some garlic scape pesto frozen from last summer's bounty, or the feel of the strengthening March sun kissing our cheeks, or the sweetness of maple syrup fresh from being boiled down. Kimmerer says, knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street to a sacred bond. Now that I notice love notes everywhere, I try to reciprocate with my own love notes back to the earth. First, with a prayer of gratitude, when I feel that surge in my heart at spotting a cardinal flit across my path. And then my own love notes might be picking up some trash on the sidewalk. Or another day recently, I stomped a big, glorious spiral in the backyard of my elderly neighbor. And a couple weeks ago, we traded in our big van that we no longer need for a car with double the gas mileage. And just yesterday, I savored the taste of a snowflake on my tongue. I know that some may fault me for anthropomorphizing nature, but I say if the end result is that it transforms care of the earth from a chore into a reciprocal and sensual exchange of love, where is the harm? There is little in life as motivating and compelling to action as falling in love. So in the coming days and weeks, I hope you will keep an eye out for the ways to show the earth your love and signs that the earth loves you in return. And now we share a video testimonial for the March Community Pouch recipient, Down Street Housing.
Generosity is a spiritual value that is central to our personal well-being and the well-being of our church community. It is a blessing and a privilege of our free church tradition to support the shared values of this congregation with the generosity of our collective financial resources. Each month, through the UCM Community Pouch Program, we share part of our collection with an important church fund or a community organization aligned with our values. During the month of March, our Community Pouch recipient is Down Street Housing's Barry Recovery Residence for moms and kids. Down Street is renovating a 100-year-old building in Barry to create a recovery residence for mothers in recovery from substance use disorder and their children, only the second home to serve these families in Vermont. Your contribution to the UCM Community Pouch this month will directly support this work. Michelle Kersey of Down Street Housing will be available during our Zoom coffee hour to share more information about this project. You can make a financial contribution today by donating online. Go to ucmvt.org and click Donate to UCM. There are options to contribute to the general fund, which supports the general operating budget of the church, the community pouch, or both. You can also mail a check to the church or you can use our text to give option. Simply send a text message with the word give to 802-266-4848 and follow the instructions sent to you. We are so grateful to each and every one of you for your generosity in its many forms. While the offering is being given and gratefully received, please enjoy a musical offering, a free improvisation titled Passages, performed by Lydia Lowry Busler.
And the trees, they waved in the breeze. The trees, they waved and said, ah. Say hello to the sea. And the whales said, ah, hear the breeze above the seas, blow and sing, sing, let them hear it on the mountain tops. Blow and sing to the mountain tops. Blow, brothers and sisters, blow. Did you hear that? Did you hear the blowing? Did you hear the blowing? that I heard the blowing on the breeze. Brothers and sister birds, carry the song to the energy of the earth and fly, fly,
Thank you, Lydia. I invite you now into our time of meditation and prayer, a time that we set aside for settling into quiet reflection and for tuning into the condition of our hearts and spirits. We begin by acknowledging the joys and the sorrows that we bring with us into this time of worship. You may be celebrating something special in your life or feeling grateful for a particular person or experience. You may be facing a challenge or a loss that is heavy on your heart. We acknowledge the collective pain that we feel in the face of the social and environmental crises that cause suffering for so many people on our planet. May we hold all that is present with compassion. In the spirit of community, we set aside time in each of our services to share our personal joys and sorrows with one another. Today, you are welcome to share in the Zoom chat or Facebook comments for others to read. We ask that you share only those joys and concerns that are personal to you. If you have a concern to share that pertains to another member of our church community, please do ask their permission before sharing on their behalf. And you are welcome to share your joys and concerns in the Zoom chat or Facebook comments now, so that we might offer one another our care and support. Art Stuckey is our lay pastoral caregiver this morning, and he's available to lend a listening ear of care after the service. Art's phone number will be shared in the Zoom chat and can be found in our church directory. As these joys and sorrows are shared or held in the silence of your hearts, may you know that you are held in the love of this community and the expansive love that moves beyond us. I invite you now to find your breath once again, to feel yourself planted in your seat or upon the floor, imagining yourself firmly connected to the earth beneath you, to the soil, the layers of rock and earth below you. And I share with you these words of prayer by Lynn Cox. Spirit of life, ancestor of the stars and the sun, you who embrace the vastness of space and us along with it, be with us today. Hold us in our worry, our exhaustion, our grief. Keep us close as we sit with our truth, whatever that may be. Lead us to rest in the quiet, to find solace and renewal in this time of shifting light and dark. You whose arms open with the spinning galaxies, help us to make room as you do for all that is. Open our hearts to our loved ones, our neighbors, the beings with whom we share this planet. Lead us to reach out to others in compassion. Turn us toward one another in mercy, right relationship, and reconciliation. You who have seen the rising and the setting of suns, of seasons, of civilizations, remind us of all that we have learned from the history of the world and from our own histories. Give us the courage to face our mistakes and to repair them whenever possible. Help us understand our interdependence, our gravitational relatedness with all of the other spinning lives around us, and lead us to treat those relationships with care. In this space and time filled with the people among us who shine like stars, this space filled with the sparkle of love and care, we give thanks for this moment to be together. May our senses be open to the beauty of this day, this season, this world. Let us move now into a time of quiet meditation, after which we will sing Spirit of Life. You are also welcome to join in movement with Spirit of Life, following along with the movements demonstrated by Danya in the video. Our reading this morning is the poem Dead Stars by Ada Limon. Out here, there's a bowing even the trees are doing. Winter's icy hand at the back of all of us. Black bark, slick yellow leaves, a kind of stillness that feels so mute it's almost in another year. I am a hearth of spiders these days, a nest of trying. We point out the stars that make Orion as we take out the trash, the rolling containers, a song of suburban thunder. It's almost romantic as we adjust the waxy blue recycling bin until you say, man, we should really learn some new constellations. And it's true. We keep forgetting about Antlia, Centaurus, Draco, Lacerta, Hydra, Lyra, Lynx. But mostly we're forgetting we're dead stars too. My mouth is full of dust and I wish to reclaim the rising, to lean in the spotlight of streetlight with you toward what's larger within us, toward how we were born. Look, we are not unspectacular things. We've come this far, survived this much. What would happen if we decided to survive more, to love harder? What if we stood up with our synapses and flesh and said, no, no to the rising tides? Stood for the many mute mouths of the sea, of the land. What would happen if we used our bodies to bargain for the safety of others, for Earth? If we declared a clean night, if we stopped being terrified, if we launched our demands into the sky, made ourselves so big people could point to us with the arrows they make in their minds, rolling their trash bins out after all of this is over. This past fall, at the tail end of my sabbatical time, I traveled down to Marlborough, Vermont for a weekend retreat. I gathered with 10 other women from around the Northeast to dedicate time for rest and reconnection to the earth and our own bodies. As part of the retreat, we were offered a time to be witnessed and photographed in this process of reconnection. Each of us traveled on the land to find a particular place for this sacred time. My session was in the early morning around 7 a.m., just as the sun was rising. And I walked upon the land, keeping my senses open to a spot that might call to me. And I found myself standing before a small opening in the woods that had been cleared to make room for the power lines above. In this opening, rocks and boulders covered the ground. And covering those rocks and boulders was a soft bed of lichen. Lichen are amazing organisms, and they're actually two organisms living together in symbiotic relationship, fungus and algae. Lichens need clean, fresh air to grow and thrive. As I stepped into this opening in the woods, I sensed the verdancy and the health of this micro ecosystem. I sat upon one of the boulders and closed my eyes. In that moment, after a season of wildfires out west and smoke-filled skies in the east, I felt the heavy grief of all the ways we humans have harmed the planet and one another, and tears fell from my eyes. I laid my body down on the rocks, feeling the softness of the lichen on my cheek, and I felt held by the earth. This was a moment like the ones that Liza described in her Time for All Ages, when I too felt loved by the earth. That love stirred up my faith in life itself and in our deep interconnection with all life. Perhaps you too have experienced moments like this, when your own connection and interrelatedness with all life has felt almost palpable. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe that we humans are part of making possible the flourishing of life. We derive meaning, purpose, and strength from our interrelatedness to all life and to the cosmic particles of the stars of the universe and the soil of the earth. We engage in reciprocal relationship with life, for we are part and parcel of all that is and all that ever was, life. We know that we can also be destroyers of life. We have plundered the earth's precious resources. We have taken and extracted more than the earth can sustain. We have polluted rivers, lakes, forests, and sky, threatening and destroying our very own human species and countless other species on the planet. The climate crisis is the greatest and the most damning evidence of our wayward ways, of how we have turned away from life in pursuit of profit and bought into the slick promises of a fossil fuel-based capitalist economic system. Here in Vermont, we feel the climate crisis on our doorstep. Yes, we welcome the warm sun on a March afternoon, but also grieve the loss of the reliability of the seasons. Those who have lived on this land for generations upon generations have come to faithfully depend on rhythms of the natural world that have become dramatically altered. The sweet sap now runs earlier and earlier. The beloved robin returns when it was once still winter. Mud cakes your tires before the seeds have even been ordered. Waters are rising and floodplains expanding, not just in the bayous of Louisiana and on the Jersey Shore, but on Lake Champlain and the Winooski River. During the summertime, heat comes and lingers longer, while the rain is unpredictable and drought is a more constant companion. We grieve for what has already been lost and what will be lost that we cannot stop. I know that this grief can feel unbearable and turn towards despair. In my almost 7 years of serving as your minister, I have witnessed an exponential increase in the number of pastoral visits that I have with members of this community that touch on the emotional and spiritual distress of facing the climate crisis. Over the last 2 decades, more words have been created to try to describe what is happening emotionally and spiritually to human beings as we have faced a climate disrupted planet. There is the word eco-anxiety to describe the chronic fear, anger, and exhaustion that one feels when the reality of climate change and its consequences is acknowledged. The philosopher Glenn Albrecht came up with the word solastalgia to describe the emotional distress and sense of loss caused when one's home place has suffered environmental damage and is no longer how it once was. And the psychiatrist Lisa Van Susteren has also developed her own words for climate grief. Van Susteren had joined Al Gore's Climate Reality Project in the early 2000s as a climate educator. As she continued to lead classes, she found that she wasn't sleeping well and began having symptoms that as a psychiatrist read like post-traumatic stress disorder. Yet the events that she was imagining hadn't happened yet. She coined the term pre-traumatic stress disorder to describe the effect on the body and mind of imagining future traumatic events, such as those caused by climate change. I know that many of you have felt this kind of emotional and spiritual distress over the years, and more acutely as of late. However we choose to name the condition of this distress, it all points to a deeper truth. We feel bereft at our disconnection with the earth. Something deep inside us knows that we are being called back into right relationship with all life. Our grief shows us that we remain connected to the powerful force of life. Whatever wrongs we have committed, however off track we are, however far down the road of a climate disrupted planet we might be, we are still connected to life. Our love of Earth and Earth's love for us is still alive. And the flourishing of life is still possible. Life still pulses through the snow-covered fields. Life is teeming in the fungal networks below the surface where the sun doesn't reach. Life darts between the oak and the maple and cacaws from the top of the pine. Life offers you raspberry and boysenberry, dandelion and burdock, trout and deer. Life gives you a fallen log to rest your weary bones and a grassy knoll to lie down when your despair grows heavy and hard. Life grows and thrives under your tender care as the first shoots appear above the soil of your seedbed. The theologian Rebecca Parker says that amid the tremendous diversity of our Unitarian Universalist beliefs, there is a defining collective focus, which is this: a devotion to the flourishing of life. She writes, however we name it, this is our center, our grounding, our wellspring, our ocean. We believe in life. We give ourselves to it, heart, mind, soul, and strength. We covenant to be a circle of life, manifesting the solidarity that will defend, protect, savor, and save life on this planet, our fragile and beautiful home. We are out for life. We are out for life. And so what if we took seriously this defining focus, the devotion to the flourishing of life? What if we took it seriously enough to put our faith in the power of life that stirs in us? What if we believed that life hasn't given up on us, and so we choose to be out for life? This might feel daunting if we believed that each of us had to go it alone, or that the flourishing of life depended solely upon humanity as an isolated set of beings on this planet. Instead, we can lean upon a larger truth and a deeper connection. The late Paulist priest and pioneer in eco-spirituality, Thomas Berry, writes, we must feel that we are supported by that same process that brought the earth into being, that power that spun the galaxies into space, that lit the sun and brought the moon into its orbit. Those same forces are still present. Indeed, we might feel their impact at this time and understand that we are not isolated in the chill of space with the burden of the future upon us and without the aid of any other power. We can draw upon the power of the mysterious cosmological process that birthed the universe and our place in it to faithfully respond to this moment. We can know that we are not isolated, but interdependent and deeply connected to the earth and to the universe. How wondrous and wonderful it is to be alive here, now, able to see clearly the realities before us and to move with purpose in relationship with others in response. How we respond is, of course, important, but when faced with the despair and the distress that can now so often arise, that we respond at all that we embrace our agency and choose to live fully is no small feat and absolutely essential. Kara Arman, a teacher of environmental humanities, poses an antidote to eco-anxiety, and that is eco-inspiration. With eco-inspiration, we can look honestly at the environmental devastation that we're currently experiencing and causing, and firmly decide to change it from a place of calm and creativity. Here, among us, let us nourish this eco-inspiration in one another. Let us remind one another of our love for this world and how the world loves us back. Let us inspire each other with the actions that we are taking individually and collectively to defend, protect, savor, and save life on this planet, our beautiful and fragile home. And let us remember and be nourished by these words by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting for their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. And let us join now in our closing hymn, We Are Not Our Own, led by the UCM Choir. As we draw our service to a close, we extinguish the chalice and carry within each of us its healing flame, the warmth of community and the spark of hope into the days and the week ahead. Please join me in saying our congregational mission statement. We welcome all as we build a loving community to nurture each person's spiritual journey serve human need, and protect the earth, our home. May you go from this time of worship knowing your connection to the power of all life. May you know yourself deeply connected to one another. May you put your faith in the love that holds this world together and you to it, interdependent, intertwined, linked in love. And we conclude our service with the postlude.